Oh, just some quick updates on things. This is the 6-inch speaker, I believe it's 6-inch speaker from the Motorola 50s TV, the field coil speaker there, and it's in pretty rough shape. The cone may scrape, but putting this back, there's more glue than there is paper, I swear, but little by little I'm just mending each little tear, and at least it'll be usable during testing if and when we ever get to the Motorola 50s TV. This one came from the smaller Bakelite one. Anyway, today's video. This thing was sitting on the top. There's a gentleman. He must do cleanouts or something nearby, and this thing was sitting on top of the trash barrel for about 4 days now, outside and on the main drag, and nobody seems to take any liking to cassette decks. And me, for a while, I was seeing them at swap meets and flea markets, and some really nice high-end models, 3-head cassette decks, and nobody seems to know what all that was about. 3 heads, you could monitor the recording while you were making it, and you could easily weed out the garbage tapes. If the recording, you could actually listen to it a split second after it was being made. And back in that day, we had spent hundreds on good cassette decks. Anyway, in this day and age, nobody seems to want these things anymore. So this gentleman, I think, buys the amplifiers. He sells off the amplifiers and speakers and whatever else, perhaps the tuners, but the cassette decks just seem to end up on the curbside. So this is like the third one that's been put out on the curb, and one was a Denon, and it works fine. I think I have 2 Denons, and this is an NAD, and there's no problem, seems, with anything he puts out at the curbside. So here we go. I rescued this one. It's an NAD. I'd say about somewhere in the 80s, maybe up to the early 90s, but no, I'd say more like 84, 5, 6 era here. And the strange thing, I'll point out some of the features. No headphone jack. No headphone jack, but and it's a standard play record head, nothing fancy. It's just a standard good all around stereo cassette deck, 6240, and let me spin it around here. We'll fire it up in a second. NAD and all their stuff, most of all their stuff is made in Japan. Has multiplex filter for when you record off the radio, like some of us used to do. And this is a nice feature here, the bias fine adjustment. And it was way up on plus when I got it. And my deck that I used in the day had the bias fine on the front of the panel, and I had a 3-head cassette deck, so I could actually monitor the recording. And I always liked the bias plus. My friends when I made them tapes, would always joke and say, "Turn up the bias." It kind of like sprays the S's a little bit if you go too high, but it adds a lot more brilliance to the tape. So I always liked the bias fine adjustment. I always had it all the way up. That's for recording. So this is loaded with little niceties like that. It has a fine bias adjustment. Dolby, like everybody else, I would record in Dolby and play back with Dolby off. So have our test tape here, which I thought I had the Water Boys, and it ends up Bob Marley was in the shell. So power it up, and I just have it hooked to the computer speakers. Fast forward and rewind does work. All functions work. There's nothing wrong with this. Eject. And the heads look fine. I cleaned them, wiped them a little bit. Counter's working. Play trim, I don't know what that is, but again, fast forward. Logic control, full solenoid. And so that's it.